If you're attempting to get an apparently disinterested person to dance, observably, there are only two ways to do it. And rather than me dip into my questionable and even finite bag of synonyms, let's leave it at reward and reward and punishment. That's closer to the money. That is the only two ways that you can observe that you're going to get someone who is apparently presently disinterested in dancing with you to dance. There is a particular phenomenon that goes on in life that's also related to, I'll remind you now, if I get around to it, to the ultimate conversion of energy in an electrical circuit inside of a person. But there is a particular phenomenon, and that is that people find themselves, and this is especially true, let me use a good example with which I believe almost everyone can identify. Sex, apparent attraction. But people find themselves suddenly being invited to dance in what seems to be an unexpected manner. And this holds true especially, let me keep the example going to a way that all of you can understand. Some of you won't like it if I carry it too far, but I've never done this anyway, and it keeps popping up in your little, what do you call it, PLs, personal lives. Men will find themselves, perhaps at least once in your life, apparently being invited to dance from an unexpected source, that apparently some woman has made herself available. Now, this is just one example, but this is one I think all of you should be able to hear. You should never question, you should never begin to offer either reward or punishment to someone who apparently of their own volition has invited you to dance. And yet out in life, what happens? The classic example I'm about to sneak up on, that I'm afraid that almost all of you men, maybe I won't look, are going to grit your teeth or grin, because if it's ever happened to you, then men will just consistently, after they've been invited to dance in an unexpected manner, that is, they did not initiate it as far as they can tell, they held out no promise of reward or punishment. But then they will begin to fool around with it to see if they should be offering some reward or punishment. The classic example is a man to continue after the relationship gets going, that he starts and then continues to ask the woman, "Are you having fun? Are you having fun?" A large part of life's body throughout the world and throughout history, the mainstream of city life, have expressed from their view, which is correct from their view, an almost adamant disbelief of the existence of pimps. In some cases, even polygamy. It serves a purpose of closing up a circuit, of converting energy from an initial flow through man by having one party who apparently has been invited to dance, and there was no initial solicitation of, "Are you going to punish me like I need, like I want? Are you going to reward me?" It just happens, and then the party who apparently was invited to dance without having to produce a promise then begins to fool around with it. Since it's obvious that many of you cannot extend this, I was hoping to be able to pull out one crude example. And then I was hoping, oh foolish me, on a Monday, that some of your systems would go, ha ha ha. Think about much of the so-called interpersonal problems between people. What are they? How are they expressed within the up-to-date forum circa 1988, such as a sexual talk show? They describe it as an interruption or an inability for the two parties, back to my one example of like a sexual relationship, of the two parties to communicate directly, that there seems to be, due, of course, obviously, through our subconscious traumas, fears and phobias and whatnots, an inability to directly communicate. And what I'm trying to get you to see is there is no such thing as an inability to communicate. That is not the problem. I'm going to, based upon the great success I'm having with you presently on this, I was planning, well, I think I'll plan to leave, to point out that very same thing connected to converting the energy of life into apparently light, heat, or motion. But I was hoping that some of you would be able to see that this goes beyond just simple relationships. But apparently people are not having satisfying communication, which is a form of transferring energy. I was hoping on your own that some of you would see that there is a basis many times of they bring a dance. Relationship. And one party feels as though I am not transmitting the kind of energy I should. I am not giving this other person something. There's something lacking, and I'm not sure what it is. It has to be, in the 3D world, it has to fall within the classification of reward about how great you are, how wonderful you are. I could just kiss your little feet. I just love everything about you, even your dandruff. And I just dream of you all the time. Either that, or hey, bitch, get in here. And of course, women nowadays are beginning to exert their rights, and some of them are slapping and pistol whipping men around. But there seems to be a lacking in all 3D relationships. In the 3D world, no matter what you would describe as being an example of a kind of payment being made from one party, from one dancer to the other, it's got to fall within those two general classifications. It seems to be punishment, or it seems to be some kind of reward. Now, much of what passes, I was trying to get some of you to see on your own, for the inability to communicate, or the belief that I can't communicate, that people say my mate does not understand me. I try and pour out my heart. I try to talk about my desires. I try to talk about my fantasies, my dreams, and the other person goes, yeah, and then they ignore it. There seems to be some inability to directly communicate. The basis of some of this, if you could see from an additional angle so that you would not be a day short, a day late, is that a relationship started and one of the parties, let's say you, did not have a firm grasp, did not have a concept of what it is the other person wants. That is, either reward or punishment. But then the relationship, the dance seems to start. And both parties seem to be dancing along. It's as good as any other dance. Neither one of them knows a better dance going on right then. Life has not produced in them the desire for a better dance, nor has life simultaneously produced a better dance, or you would suddenly be dancing alone. So there you are, both dancing, and still less rhetorically believe I'm speaking to you. That one of the persons keeps thinking, well, this is going to fall apart if I don't do something. There's something that I'm not doing. And so the person continues to whisper in another person's ear, have I told you how much I love you? Have I told you how beautiful you are today? And that doesn't seem to have any effect. Doesn't seem to cause, it just seems to strike an indifferent ear. So then the person can try other things. But that is the most common. Since a few weeks back, and some of you have not known what to ask, but when I just sort of made the blanket statement that there was a greater difference between men and women than any of you ever imagined. ever imagined. And this is a piece of it. It is not just some new information sexually, although God knows a lot of you could use it, you believe you could. But it is not just that. It goes into other relationships. Operating on a most practical basis. Let me repeat that which I believe slipped by you as much as the heart of what I started out talking about in this area. If you are in a dance, if you are in any kind of relationship, business, sexual, just friendship, or if there just seems to be a kind of passing phenomenon that's taking place between you and some family member, that is, suddenly, you and the person seem to be in an agreeable dance. Let me tell you, from me to you, don't fuck with it. But notice, it is in the wiring system of everyone. And if they had the ability to be a friend, a fictitious, reasonably insane person, a fripp, and they say, well, I have always dreaded being around blank, my mother, my father, my grandmother. I have never gotten along with women or with men. And suddenly I'm in this relationship, and I have never been with a woman over a week that the neighbors weren't having to call the police on us. And she just seems to be just gliding along, and everything's fine. Jesus. If there was such a thing out in the city as people using, what do they call it in the city? Their brains. For what even their own dictionaries say the brain should be used for, what's the one thing that a person would not do when the wind seemed to have gotten in the right direction? There are no great breakers going on. They're making good time. What's the last thing they would do? Is get up and jump up and down. Rock the boat. But people do it, and they do it in a specific way. There's still not enough of you have gotten a glimpse of, and I don't know whether I'm going to push it much further. But it's the kind of thing that comes out in the example of men continuing to say, are you having fun? Are you having fun to a woman? Now, not a woman that he invited to dance initially, as far as he can tell. It just seemed that the relationship was upon him. The dance was upon him. And he continues to say, is everything all right? Can I get you something? Are you having fun? Are you having fun? Are you having fun? If apparently there has been no direct solicitation from your partner, whether it be a sexual partner, whether it be a business, whether it be a new idea you had, I kept waiting. You wouldn't do it. Do not keep trying to solicit from the new partner, even an idea. Don't keep asking it, are you having fun? Are you having fun? Still, if any of you don't see how many directions I took this, some of you men, or you women already know about this when I started this. You just never heard it in words, and you never thought it in words. But some of you men, if you could think back at all and clear out some of your memory of your nervous system, I bet all of you, or many of you, have had some occasion that you find yourself in what seemed to be a surprisingly agreeable relationship with a woman, and you weren't sure how it happened. You had to go in and look at your face again, and yeah, it's me. I look the same. And does she know something about me I don't? Have I inherited $1 million and didn't know about it? And then you started, are you having fun? Are you having fun? Are you having fun? And then one day she says, Jesus, I don't hear that anymore. And she just left, and that was it. How much has ever happened to you in life that you thought, well, I'm on the right track of doing something? I've got this great new plan. I've got this new idea. I believe I'm beginning to understand something in a certain way, and I don't really know why. I don't know how I deserve this. Are you having fun? Are you having fun? In the city, think about this. From the beginning, if I didn't dwell on that enough when I started the head of this paragraph, there would only seem to be two ways to motivate people to dance in the city. Children, your mother, your father, business associates, people you're trying to sell to, people that you have to buy from. It's on the basis simply of reward or punishment that you tell people, verbally or otherwise, go along with my dance, go along here with my plan, And here is a reward for you. Money, my affection, my concern, my protection, my hugs, my smiles. Or the other one is, go along with my plan or get cut, get pistol whipped, get punished. There's no doubt about it. Do it. What else is there? You don't have to look at this metaphysically yet or strange. There simply is nothing else that motivates people at the 3D level. Nothing. Anything else that you want to call it besides reward or punishment, all you got to do is think about it a split second and you see it fits into one of the two. As always, you should find that interesting, unless all of you and I are just getting used to the fact that everything comes this way. You're right, but you should still find it interesting. Why? With the IQ that some of you have, and especially after hanging around me this length of time, to where your mind is just a cornucopia of little blossoms, or at least little bulbs, why can't you think of how could life be arranged, just in the ordinary sense, in some other way that would make people, me, anybody move, were it not for the promise of a reward or the promise of some punishment? Why couldn't there be just one more, just one exemption from this? There's got to be one, doesn't there? Now, but go ahead if you need a hobby. But still, you should find that interesting, not simply because I pointed out, and not simply because it is limited to two, but there should still be this kind of nonverbal question going on, this kind of nonverbal survey you should be making. The way things seem to be, what is life up to? What is life up to that I have never surveyed correctly? Yeah. So that things are always divided into, all right, it's got to be this or that. The only way that people are going to move, they got to be held out the promise of punishment or reward. Why is it like that? Is that real efficient? Could I think, if life would listen to me, can I think of anything to add to that to make it more efficient? In the 3D world, the only thing you do is cut it down to one choice. And then, of course, you can take choice out of the dictionary. And from a certain view, since I'm here, that would seem like that is the ultimate motivating factor. Let's cut out all choice. Do that on your own. Maybe I'll get to that in another couple of paragraphs. Reminding you, this is just a partial shift. From Thursday, I was pointing out that all electrical circuits, generally speaking, this is not a course in electronics because I'm not an expert, but I know this much, it is generally considered that all electrical currents, if they're not going to short circuit, have got to ultimately, they've got to reach a place and be converted into something else. And I pointed out to you that it would seem to me, which is good enough for me, that the three most common, just all up and down the line, all the way from nuclear power plants to your little one-room country shack, is into light, heat, and motion. And I pointed out to you, trying to hint, and I believe, if I remember correctly, I had to make it real obvious that I was suggesting a parallel between light, heat, and motion in the yellow circuit, the blue circuit, and the red circuit. And Thursday also, if you recall, the only one of the triumvirate there that I really addressed was the possibility, or the area of life's energy running through man in a certain way and him being in a chain of electrical current, and the one possibility of it coming out as light. That is this, and then into talking of motion, talking of action. Let me pick up a little bit with the two that I did not go into, that of heat and motion, and again suggesting to you that there could be a parallel I'm using here between heat and motion being in one particular line at one particular time, the ultimate conversion of life's energy, the electrical current, in a person, in an individual, going into either heat or motion. That is, coming out either as a manifestation of what seems to be one's feeling nervous system or into one's moving, action nervous system. Again, what seems to be the questionable, the ambivalent ways in which people live is that people continually believe that they are feeling and are acting in ways that are personally unprofitable for them. Such as, if you recall Thursday, I pointed out, this comes out and people many times go just all over the world, all the time. Right now, somebody's doing it. Why did I say that? Why do I keep running my old dumb mouth? How come I can't? Every time I seem to wash my face, my lips get wet and I can't do a thing with them. You know, why can't I shut up? Why do I quit making a fool of myself? Why do I keep asking women, having fun, anything I can get for it? All right. But now, this should get a little closer to home to some of you. People throughout the world, right this second, feel as though, believe as though, so that I don't confuse you verbally for a second, that ways that they are feeling and ways that they may be in fact acting are in a similar situation. That is, why do I feel this way? This is unprofitable. Why else would anyone go to confession? Why does anyone go to a religion? Why does anyone go to a psychiatrist? Why does anyone call their mother? Why does anyone go to a friend and say, can I talk to you about something? It's a dead giveaway. Shouldn't be a secret. I'm just putting in sort of a new phrase, a new term for you. Their belief is, I am feeling in manners that are unprofitable. That is, ways I should not be feeling, and I need some help, either professionally or just on a friendly basis. That the ways I'm feeling, and of course textbooks are full of it, and now so-called common sense is full of it in people's memory, that there are people who feel ways that are, to say the very least, unprofitable to them. People who have phobias. People who feel that if I go outside, I'll die. If I go outside my house. Therefore, I have to stay in my house. I can't leave. And this is surely unprofitable to the person. All the way from that to people who will say nowadays, I keep getting attracted to a certain kind of man, certain kind of woman, over and over and over, and I can't seem to help the way I feel. I'm just attracted to them, and they always end up mistreating me, beating on me, running around on me, being unfaithful, whatever. My feelings keep leading me into behavior in ways that are unprofitable to me. Now that would seem to be the norm. When I threw in everything from priests, religions, and psychiatry, I was not making fun of it, or to friends talking over coffee, to the apparent purpose of one having a mother to talk to. All of that fits within this same area, that I have feelings that are not profitable. All right. All of that to get you, to try to slip this up on you. Again, it is a kind of beautiful misdirection from the revolutionary attitude of what life's up to. Not my theory, not something I made up, not an attack on life. But if you can begin to see with one more dimension, if you can begin to see just with time as being a constant backdrop to this, to see that what everyone else believes is lacking at least one dimension. The master stroke herein is that people believe that they are acting and feeling on the basis of personal motivation. And if that were true, of course, if that were true, then certainly if you said, my desire, my personal motivation, now, where have you got it? You ordered it from the catalog, you discovered it, you've got your own personal motivation, and let's say that your general motivation is to be the happiest little son of a gun, the happiest little cowpoke on this planet. So therefore, having feelings that won't let you go out of the house, or having feelings that you believe that the FBI can send out radio waves and they're draining your brain, then certainly those feelings are unprofitable, right? If you had personal motivations. If you can see, begin to see the other dimension, that what people feel and what people do ordinarily is not based in some way from personal motivation, as they imagine, but it's life simply having to complete a certain circuit and make the ultimate conversion. Then what you apparently are doing, or let's make it easy, what other people are apparently feeling and doing that they themselves admit and proclaim is unprofitable to me, is self-defeating to me, you no longer see it that way. Because to begin with, if the world again, may I point out to you, were full, partially full, A few people using their brain, as their dictionary says it should be used, would not people find it interesting, these few real intellectuals, say how strange it is that the whole world says they're motivated when asked to be happy, to be successful, to be a good citizen, whatever crap they say. But on the basis it's to be happy, to get through this veil of torment in a reasonably happy manner. Then why is it that it seems like every other son of a bitch is suffering from some phobia, or says that people are talking to him from another planet, or said he knows his mother still hates him even though she's been dead 20 years? How can life be so arranged? Unless, of course, you're still dealing with those kind of real out-of-sync daydreams that the gods are punishing man. How is it that humanity seems to be able to coevally, I say that the purpose of being here, or my personal purpose, is to try and be reasonably happy? I don't mean just a selfish way, but to find a sexual partner, a mate, and help make them happy. And then raise some little nippers and have little happy nippers. And have a dog and a cat and make them a happy dog and a cat. And to make my neighborhood happy, to make the Republican Party happy if I'm a Republican, to make America happy, to make Albania happy. And yet, apparently, at the very least, every other person is suffering over some deep-rooted, almost untouchable, subconscious, blue circuit hematopia of some kind that, how can this be? What's going on? Of course, by that time, if someone was trying to be philosophical and that along those lines in the city, by then, you know what they do. They holler, well, it's 5 o'clock, I'm going to take off and have myself a drink. There's nowhere to go with it. The revolutionary way to go with it, well, of course, I'm telling you this, and some of you now, you just happen to run across me, that some of you now can begin to make that one step over, that it's not simply that this is inexplicable. It's that there is always a piece of data missing. No matter how you arrange it out there, they try to arrange it in spiritual terms, they try to arrange it in psychological terms, they try to arrange it in sociological terms, and you should just notice by now, not because I say it, but you should notice none of it fits. None of it seems to answer all the questions. Hence, philosophers have always got some kind of job, even though they got to work part-time at McDonald's, because they can always say, well, it's not man's duty or job to know. It's his job to question. Well, there's a few people that that's not good enough for. It is not the lack of correct interpretation. It's not the lack of a correct discipline to rearrange all this data. It's to be able to see, aha. Of course, it's one of the first ahas, and you should do it when you first see it, probably bad enough to knock yourself out for 2 or 3 hours. It's to realize, well, what's missing is that there's something missing. All across the board, not in little examples. It has nothing to do with my education, but all across the board, it's like you had this great problem, and someone has come along before you, and let us say they cut it up, they drew a chalk line through all the problems in the world, and they divide up into fourths. And then before you got here, they took a knife, else they clouded men's minds, they took a saw, and they cut off 1/4 of it and sent it somewhere. It's hidden behind, it's back behind some mysterious star or black hole, and left you with this. But then the nervous system of man is wired up to perceive that none of this makes total sense. That is, there's an unanalyzed, an indescribable feeling that this should make sense, hence science, religion, that this should make sense. I just know it should. The answer's here somewhere. And it's not. That is, it's not in the information that's here, that I'm going to some way rearrange it. I'll call it something else. I won't call it religion, I'll call it psychiatry. I won't call it mythology, I'll call it science. I won't call it science, I'll call it New Age science. You can call it anything you want to. But when you're a dimension short, you're a day late. And I say a day late, we're talking about 6 million years late. But back to where this was specifically. The beauty of the fact that everybody suffers from this some. I didn't mean just people who are clinically phobia addicts, but everybody has this feeling that I have done things, perhaps a pattern of behavior I've done over and over that is unprofitable. How can I be so dumb? What's making me do this? Life is making you do that. Not your subconscious, not your background. Why do I do things? Why do I continually get drunk and wreck my car? Why do I continually try and go pick up a sexual partner, and by the time we have one or two drinks and she seems or he seems like they might be interested, I'll say, surprising what you can do with cheap material. Or hold on to that, maybe it'll come back in style. Or who does your hair? I thought Mussolini's family was out of work. Why did I do that? Why did I behave that way? All right. Simply this, the feeling all of you suffer from this. It goes on as part of being alive, that I feel ways that, to me personally, are against my best interest. And then I continually behave, either in some scheduled pattern, or else just spasmodically it pops up that I do things, and then you suffer over it. Then you think there's got to be an answer here. Something is causing me to do this that is personal to me. That would be true if you were personally motivated. If any of you are personally motivated, you graduate. No need to come back. But to realize the beauty that life has got to complete some circuit. The circuit may be on a large scale, it may be of no great consequence at that time. But suddenly you are feeling, even saying, but feeling or behaving in a way that as soon as you do it, you think, what in the goddamn hell did I do that for? You did it so that you would do it. You did not do it for any reason of yours. And as I'm pointing out, it may not have been of any great significance to the overall health and history of life itself, but if it had not, along the line that is you, at that time, converted that energy into something, it would have been a short circuit. And so it made you suddenly go, and throw up on the girl. You say, how could I do that? It makes you suddenly have a feeling that I can't breathe, I'm going to die. And later you can say, why in the world do I suffer from this? Because you're alive. There's a lot more to that, and it's so good I'm not going to carry it any further verbally. But let me point out something else. Since it's such a natural segue from electronics and throwing up on people in bars to medicine, I assume everyone has heard this, that there is no drug that has a simple effect. It's not possible. And you don't need to have a medical source to hear that. I could have told you that. I'm about to in another way. But even they, to play our great metaphorical 60 laps around the pool, dive in first, and medicine says there is no such thing as a drug with a, quote, simple effect. It's not possible. If you've got a physician somewhere and you ask him something about, well, this drug will help what I have, and he says yes, and you say, well, does it have any side effects? And he says, no. There is no such drug as one which has only a simple effect. Second lap, coming back down this way. In the city, this has significance, and it has significance beyond that to you people. But in the city, ordinary people believe in what I could refer to, not only that I can, here I go, as the simple effect method of change. That there is a way to change, and it's the simple method effect. That is, I'll change. Classic example. I'll have to get real crude the speed at which you people are operating tonight. The classic example is, a person is going to change for the better. And they quit smoking, and they blow up like a balloon. They become a walking porker. All right, all of you are aware of that, or you've heard about it. But if you get past that sort of apparent crude level, it has no validity. No one can perceive the fact that an attempted change is not based upon a simple effect. It is not. Here is another great area that has never been described and you've never been able to think about in words, that seems to be a matter of confusion, not only amongst individual people, but amongst a person himself. That I attempted to make a change, and it's not exactly like I expected. It's like I took a pill, and at first, yeah, it did seem to help the stiffness, but now I can't see good. Well, yeah, the medicine he gave me, my stomach feels a lot better nowadays, except I'm so dizzy I can't walk. As long as the pill's having this salubrious effect on my stomach, other than that, I got to lay down. That doesn't sound familiar? Not only the people who quit smoking think, boy, I feel so much better, other than the fact that I'm now 240 pounds overweight. How about the people who apparently something has happened in their life, and I'm not just a successful apparent change, but even working toward the change, it's not exactly what I expected. Of course, those kind of people were not here when I told you people originally that any dream that the nervous system at ordinary level can perceive of clearly and firmly is absolutely, scientifically, mathematically unobtainable. It can't be. If you can perceive it in detail, if you've got a clear picture of what it is, that is the single effect change. I know what would be good for me. If I go from here to there, where it is, losing weight, changing my personality, changing the heat that my blue circuit seems to put out to others or myself, changing my behavior. I know what would be good for me without any doubt is to go from here to there. The belief in the simple effect method of change. I hate to be the bearer of you know what. Well, large amounts of weight on my back, but of bad news. There is no such thing. There is no simple effect method of change. As long as I brought up medicine as the first lap, all of you, I assume, know this, that the physical organism holding up all the molecules and containing all the cells that seem to make you up as an individual, you do know that that organism, when it's in a reasonable state of health, produces antibodies to fight off any foreign substance that comes in, right? But nobody ever conceives of foreign substance as the attempt to change. And the organism will produce its own antibodies, which is one way of looking at the fact that there is no simple effect you can look at as being a side effect to my attempted change, or, as correctly, under different circumstance, different view, is to look at any attempt that you make to change literally. This organism will produce its own form of antibodies, running back up the circuits, that in the same way that antibodies will try and fight off viruses. The organism will produce a form of antibodies that has never been named to fight off your attempt to change, because it is a substance foreign to you, and it's never taken into account. So you've got a compounded, if not felony, a compounded disappointment that the attempt to change does not lend itself. It is not capable of operating under the belief in a simple effect method of change. And beyond that, or in addition to that, all attempted change is going to be met by antibodies that will, in a proper manner in the city, attempt to ward off, to attack, to consume, to destroy the foreign substances coming in. And the foreign substance is for you, for an ordinary person to say, I'm going to change. My feelings are too hot. My thinking light is too low, too down. My methods of behavior are inappropriate, self-defeating, unhealthy. I'll change. No sooner, since consciousness is the last to know, no sooner can you think, I'll change, then you got the antibodies. They're already there. And they're the proper antibodies, please note. People don't attempt to change and then have antibodies, that is, have internal resistance in a different way. Like someone say, well, what I'm going to do is quit smoking and suddenly lose all desire for white sugar. Conversely, somebody says, well, I believe that what I'm going to do is quit talking so much. And suddenly, unexpectedly, they have this great urge to drink. The antibodies are produced in direct consequence, in direct relationship to this attempted, to this threatened foreign substance. A revolutionist has got to have a knowledge of this. And the knowledge sometimes can take that long. It's not something to go home and study. I've done told you enough in the last 10 minutes that there is no such thing as a simple effect method of change. And if you're going to hear it, at least tonight, you should have heard it then. It's not something for me to keep talking about, but everyone believes that. All right, the way to lose weight is to quit eating so much. So I'm going to quit eating so much, starting right now. The antibody is already at work. I'm talking about antibodies that holler, food, 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 hunger. We got to eat, we got to eat. You should know that. I'll get up earlier every morning and I'll feel better because if I get up earlier, I'll exercise. I'll get up earlier. The antibodies. As soon as you set the clock 30 minutes early, as soon as you hear that noise, the antibody goes, no, no, no. Tired, 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 tired. A real revolutionist has got to know that, not to try and drag your attention into really some more practical areas. This, what I was going to say, the phrase came to me just for a while. This applies unequally to you people. It applies somewhat to all of you, but I'm going ahead and use the phrase I like it. The descriptive. The reality is true for all of you, but the degree in which you should pursue this, or could properly pursue it, varies, and forget why I said that. I had a reason. But what all of you should be doing to some degree, as I've talked about before, but now maybe some of you can get another glimpse of it, is you should jam yourself into a kind of cast iron croissant motif. You should jam yourself into a cast iron set or patterns of new willful, I guess I'll go ahead and say it, habits. That almost all of you, carrying it to as strong a degree as I'm trying to make it sound, would benefit from this right now. You won't benefit from anything forever. Remember that. Anything that you can do that's beneficial has got a lifespan. All drugs finally spoil. But all of you, to some degree, would benefit right now to jam yourself into a cast iron set of some new habit or habits, such as, and it's got to be cast iron. But I did throw in croissant because it's willful. It's not that you've suddenly been drafted in the service, and it's not that I say, all right, you've got to do this, and I'm going to check on you. But if you knew what you were doing, especially some of you that keep having all these little lingering questions around the edges of the campfire about how come I can't keep up with the activity all the time, how come I can't be as insightful, how come I don't seem to have the energy all the time I have sometimes. This is one thing that you can work on, I keep talking about, is jam yourself. You got to do it into some new cast iron, fluffy kind of habit, such as, I'm going to start getting up an hour early every morning. 5 days a week would be about, that's what most people do. So I'll do it 6 days a week. I'm going to get up and I'm going to run 3 extra miles every morning. Period. Not I'm going to run 3 miles if I feel like it, if I'm not sick, if it's not raining, if it's not real cold, it's fuck all that. If I can stand up, if I can move around without throwing up and falling down and hurting myself, I'm going to do it. The purpose, see, the city has already messed around with the wiring system of people, and this has come out with a flawed basis of it in other ways. That many people would take this, if they heard something like this, that, all right, if this is supposed to be good for you, it's supposed to be good for you on the basis that you got to suffer. It doesn't have to be getting up and running. It could be that every night before you go to bed, that you look through your apartment or your house, and there is some way that everything's in its place. All dishes washed, the counter's completely clean, all your magazines are straightened up wherever they go, that the house, as much as your house can, looks like a photograph taken for inclusion in an article on nice homes. That everything is in its place. And if you got something that doesn't have a place, you should throw the thing away. There is somewhere to put everything to where you look around, all the magazines are straight, all your books are back in the shelves, all your records are put up, put in their jackets, they're put back where they go, your turntable lid's closed, all dishes always washed. As soon as you get through with them, you wash them and put them back. That there is some cast iron that you decided, motif, new set of willful habits, which are not really habits, that you do, and you do without exception. I don't care. Any story you can come up with. You wouldn't be talking to me anyway. You're not talking to anybody else. I'm not there. Your mother didn't tell you to do it. God didn't tell you to do it. You decide to do it. Of course, those of you that don't hear something initially, you tried it because you took a sincere, serious suggestion on my part and you tried it. But after that, you're responsible. Only you know you're doing it. There's nothing else to say. But all of you, to varying degrees, would benefit. There is something there that I'm never going to try to talk any more about. A lot of you already know about it. A lot of you do it every now and then you let it go a couple of years. There should be a continuing supply, and you can come up with them, of something that should be a part of a daily, willful pattern that may appear to be of no great consequence. It doesn't have to be that I'm going to run 3 miles and therefore I'll feel better. That wasn't the point. I just picked out that. Most of you, what would be the point of having my house right before I go to bed? I'll look around in my apartment, and it looks the same way that it looks almost day in and day out. If I go over and sit down and I pick up a magazine and read it, other than getting up and going to get a Coke or something, if I get through that, you fold it and you put it back wherever it goes. For your house almost looks like it's not lived in. Absolutely ridiculous. We're not waiting for your mother to show up and go, you finally saw the light. You just do it because you decide to do it, but it's got to be cast iron. There cannot be any exception. It's almost the basis. If I'm alive, this is this one set of cast iron habits, this new motif in this area. This will be done day in, day out, unless you give yourself an off day like running. Keeping the house straightened out, that's not hard enough physically. I'm just trying to give your ankles and knees a day off as far as running. But like keeping the house like a picture, that you can look at the picture and it's almost as though somebody lives there. That 7 days a week, nonstop. And not just something like that you do just before you go to bed, but there's some self-imposed pattern to it, such as I was trying to convey to you, that you continually straighten up as you go along. And every time you drink out of a glass, you wash it and put it back and close the cabinet. It looks as though you are not even leaving a trail in your own house. Completely useless, amounts to nothing, and it's got to be cast iron. And of course, you do assume that I am hinting that there is benefit. Anybody who can't do that doesn't belong here, and all of you can do it. Anyone who doesn't suspect that there's some benefit from it probably doesn't belong here. And even if you can't suspect right now that there's something to be benefited from that, anyone who will not take anything as insane as that may sound, or as useless as that may sound, if I bring it up and talk about it for 5 minutes, if you still don't think, well, hey, that's weird enough, I'll try it, then you probably don't belong here. And shame on some of you people, as I already mentioned, who'll go, yeah, I know that's true. God, I think I'll do that again next month. I'll do it again. There is a kind of unrecognized, this is not the end of this. I don't mean this as an ultimate goal, but there is a kind of continuing along the way, unrecognized, unknown freedom in self-imposed slavery. But it's got to be self-imposed. A lot of what passes, I see, and feel throughout my life out in the city, the ordinary nervous system of man, what passes for heroic concepts of past figures is that one thing. And it comes out verbally, historically, philosophically. People write about the blanks of history, these great generals, thinkers, spiritual people. Some kind of great inner strength, some kind of spiritual resolve they had. What they can't see is, as crude as I'm talking about, is a kind of self-imposed slavery. And it doesn't matter what. It comes out in ordinary consciousness. It comes out that they believe that these kind of people must have confined themselves, disciplined themselves in specific ways, such as, boy, I bet they didn't curse or fuck around, and they certainly never did drink. You know, they didn't shop on Sunday or Saturday or whatever the holy day was. And that's not it. The self-imposed discipline could have been absolutely insane, such as, my house is going to stay. If I'm gone from any area longer than 5 minutes, if I even suspect I am, I'm going to straighten up the room before I go, so if I peek back in, I won't know that I've been there. Something that is useless. Not, well, I'm going to give up drinking because I'll feel better, I'll live longer, and I'll make the gods happy. There is a kind of strength, there is a kind of freedom that is never recognized, there's no term for it, and it's insane to try and describe it in 3D terms out to 3D people. But it's a kind of self-imposed, willful slavery. Of course, I said slavery for a little shock effect because it's obviously not slavery. Not if you do it to yourself. It produces a kind of freedom that some of you need to know about. And the way you can do it is by doing it. The way you can experience it is by doing it. And it can be something that is apparently of no consequence whatsoever. It doesn't have to be running. But it needs to be, as far as you can tell, a willful, self-induced. You can come up with the descriptions of it, but you have got to decide that I will do it, period. No excuses. Don't let any of the partners, don't let any voice, there is no reason. If you can't do this, something's lacking in you. If you can't hear the need, if you can't feel the need, such as the running, to get back to that, it's easier to describe to some of you. I'm going to run until further notice, until I decide, who knows when, I'm going to run 2 extra miles, and I'm going to get up an hour early. That's it. There is no if, there is no and, if I'm reasonably alive. And of course, you got to be reasonable enough that maybe once or twice every decade, you might have some excuse not to do it. But other than that, rain, sleet, snow, weather, fuck all that. And you don't oversleep. There just simply is no excuse. There is no discussion about it. None. Not about why am I doing it, and there's certainly, if you do it correctly, if it becomes a cast iron croissant motif, it never arises the inner conversations of explaining why you didn't do it, known in some sections of the city as guilt, additional suffering, which is additional mechanical slavery. No form of freedom. You've got to decide to do something, and that's it. No discussion as to why, and never any discussion about how did I ever get myself to do this? You got to be able to jump in. You got to, that's why I use the term, you got to jam yourself into it. If you don't have that kind of strength, then you don't have that kind of strength, I guess, now I think about it. I'm glad I cleared that up for you. Those of you who can't do that, I guess, just can't do that. I can't resist one more thing from my side of the tape. You recall I also mentioned you on the basis of my metaphorical description of man, the state, that the king, a ruler, that if you were to ever raise your hand to the king, you better go ahead and kill him. Yeah. Might I point out that this is going on our, what is it now, about 17th or 18th lap in the pool. It's the same way with undertaking these kind of self-induced, self-imposed, willful new forms of slavery. Is you don't raise your hand to it, Don't try it in the ordinary half-assed manner. It won't work. It's a waste of time. You might as well be back in your forefathers' religion. You might as well be out drinking, riding your skateboard, riding on your fat cousin. Don't raise your hand to something when you begin to feel what this is about at all. You know, the old idea in religions, I hate to leave on a threatening note, but all religions have some notion about there being one unpardonable sin. Those that call it sin. Of course, I'd suggest it really amounts to unbelievable stupidity. But the unpardonable sin, you're getting close to the reality behind that, to just take your hand, once you get in here and you understand something about it, to raise your hand to yourself, like to attempt some change, and you simply raise your hand to the king. You're playing in a dangerous game. It's not dangerous in the city sense. Everybody does it. They don't even recognize it as a game. They don't understand it as dangerous. But you're raising your hand to something that can cause you a world of grief. Believe me. Just look around at life. People are not being tortured. They don't say that the real problems of life is out there. Not most of the people nowadays. It's not out there. It's in here. Don't raise your hand. Don't threaten the king unless you're prepared to kill him. You'll be sorry. In here, not out in life, not in the city, but doing this. That's what I was trying to get you to see, that there can be no excuse. I'm not trying to drum you up some facetious idea of a three-dimensional Superman. And if you don't have any feeling for this right now, you simply don't have any feeling for what I'm saying. And I'm not going to try to do anything about it. But to do this correctly, you got to make some decision, like taking up a new set of cast iron habits, or habit. You decide to do it, and that is the end of the discussion. It's as though you have not just raised your hand to the king, but at least that one king, that one area. If you hadn't killed him, you have rendered him unconscious for a considerable length of time. But the only way you can do it is you decide to do something, period. That's it. No discussion whatsoever. Not just no whining to me, to your mate, to your mother. There can be no whining in here. None. You can't whine about it. You decide to do it, and you do it. That is, there's not even the whining about, God, what was the original purpose of this? The king's getting up off the floor. And you're going to be sorry. And here, of course, the way you get sorry is you continue to bleed to death. You continue to be simply an outlet for life's energy. You continue to convert it in ways that you will feel, well, this is not personally pertinent or profitable to me. Hey, tell me a secret. Give me some real news. You'll stay that way. But to pick out something that seems to be totally impertinent, totally irrelevant, nothing that life has done to you lately made you want to do that. Nothing. Therefore, I'll do it, and life will have to kill me to stop me, or at least make me very, very seriously ill. This will be done. And of course, you can be deathly ill and keep your house clean. You can crawl around your hands and knees. We're going to turn the tape, and I've got something for you people out of town, part of an epilogue. Hold tight, turn the tape, and do your thing here at the end of the public